Just because of a trampoline, the peaceful neighborhood suddenly turned into a battlefield. What secret lies behind the fire that burned away the joy of childhood? Can justice prevail when power and darkness conspire? Welcome to Crazy Neighbor Drama Channel. Let us know what device you're watching from. Leave a comment below. Green Court, where the pristine white fences embrace lush green gardens, used to be a symbol of peace. But since my family moved here, that perfect facade began to crack. Jordan, a retired lawyer, always believed that each house was a private fortress where people had the right to enjoy life freely. Dad, Lily, my little daughter, tugged at my sleeve, her eyes sparkling like stars. Can you buy me a trampoline? I want to jump as high as the sparrows. My heart melted at her sweet request. All right, my little princess, I smiled. I'll make your dream come true. And so, a large, bright blue trampoline was set up in the backyard. Lily cheered with delight, bouncing non-stop, her pure laughter echoing throughout the neighborhood. But the joy was short-lived. Just a few days later, I received a letter with bold red lettering. Violation of neighborhood rules. What the heck is this? I frowned, muttering. Let me see. Sarah, my wife, took the letter and read aloud. Your trampoline violates the size and aesthetic standards of the neighborhood. It must be removed within 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in a fine. This is ridiculous, I said angrily. Lily just wants a place to play. The next day, Mrs. Marie, whom we always called Karen, the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA, appeared at our doorstep, her face as cold as stone. Mr. Jordan, I warned you, she said, her tone venomous. That trampoline must be taken down immediately. Mrs. Marie, please understand. I tried to explain. It's just a trampoline for my daughter to have fun on. And it's still in my backyard. There's no understanding here, she interrupted. Rules are rules. In the following days, my family lived in a stifling atmosphere. The penalty letters kept coming, each one adding to the anger and anxiety of the Jordan family. The first letter, marked as number 001, stated, Violation of Rule 3.2. B regarding neighborhood aesthetics. The trampoline exceeds the allowed size, causing a disturbance to the overall aesthetics. Fine, $250. Next came letter 002, violation of Rule 4.1. Regarding noise in the neighborhood. The noise from playing on the trampoline exceeded the permitted level during lunchtime. Fine, $150. The peak came with letter 004, which was not only a fine but also a threat. Repeated violations, continuous violations of the HOA regulations, seriously affecting neighborhood order. Fine, $500, with a warning of a lawsuit if further violations occurred. Each letter was not just a number, but a knife slashing at the peace of the Jordan family. They felt cornered, not knowing what to do to fight back against this abuse of power. I only wanted peace with my family. I didn't want to create any conflicts with Karen. I even compromised by paying all the fines. But that wasn't enough for Karen. One evening, when Sarah and I were sitting in the living room, a loud explosion came from the backyard. What's that? Sarah exclaimed in panic. I rushed outside, and the scene before me left me stunned. Lily's trampoline was engulfed in flames, the red fire dancing in the dark night. No, I shouted, rushing toward the fire, but it was too late. The trampoline had been completely burned. That night, Lily cried uncontrollably in my arms. Why, Daddy? Why did they do this? I held my daughter close, tears streaming down my face. Everything will be okay, sweetie, I whispered. I promise I will make sure justice is served. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of the trampoline burning kept haunting my mind. I knew I had to find out who was responsible for this. I went over the footage from the security cameras around the house, hoping to find a clue. Hours passed as I rewound and fast-forwarded through the footage, my eyes glued to the screen. Finally, around 2 a.m., I saw a figure appear from behind the house. The person moved closer to the trampoline, holding a gas can. I zoomed in on the image, and when the face of the person became clear, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Karen. "Unbelievable," I muttered, my voice shaking. I watched the video again, frame by frame. Karen, the powerful woman, the one who always acted so dignified and kind, was the one who had burned my daughter's trampoline. A wave of anger surged through me, but at the same time, I felt immense sorrow. How could she do this? I wondered. I realized this wasn't just a personal issue for my family. Karen had abused her power, bullying the vulnerable members of the community. If I didn't stand up, she would continue to run rampant. "It's time to put an end to this," I said, my voice firm. The next morning, I told Sarah and a few trusted neighbors. I shared with them the video and my decision. "Jordan, are you sure?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. "Karen is not someone easy to deal with." "I know," I said, "but I can't let her keep hurting others." The confrontation between Karen and I began. The Green Court Community Room, where the regular Homeowners Association (HOA) meeting was held, was more crowded than usual today. Plastic chairs were neatly arranged in rows, with familiar but tense faces. Low murmurs of gossip filled the air. Karen, as the president of the HOA, stood at the podium, her voice booming throughout the room. She was talking about her achievements, her efforts to maintain the aesthetic and ensure order in the neighborhood. She didn't forget to emphasize the tough decisions she had made to protect the interests of all the members. "As you can see," Karen said, her tone smug, "our green court is becoming more beautiful and civilized every day. This is all thanks to the unity and adherence to rules from all of us." Before she could finish, I stood up and walked toward the projector. "Excuse me, Mrs. Marie, may I interrupt for a moment?" I said, my voice echoing through the silence of the room. Karen frowned, looking irritated. "Mr. Jordan, is there a problem?" she asked. "I just want to share a short video with everyone," I said, holding up the USB drive. I plugged the USB into the computer and hit play. The video began to play, and Karen's image appeared on the large screen. The room went completely silent, the only sound being the faint whirring of the projector and soft, nervous breaths. On the screen, Karen stealthily approached Lily's trampoline, holding a gasoline bottle. The flames erupted, illuminating her face filled with hatred. A gasp of shock echoed from below, with eyes wide open in disbelief. Karen stood frozen at the podium, her face pale, lips trembling. She tried to say something, but no words came out. When the video ended, the room exploded. Whispers and murmurs filled the air, and angry glares were directed at Karen. She stood motionless at the podium, her face pale, lips trembling. "No, it's not what you think," Karen stammered, her voice shaking. "This is just a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to." "A misunderstanding?" A middle-aged man stood up, his voice filled with anger. "Do you think we're children? We saw your actions with our own eyes." "Exactly," a woman shouted. "You abused your power. You've bullied us for far too long. We can't accept this behavior," another person said. "You must be held accountable." Karen struggled to regain her composure, but her voice still trembled. I just wanted to protect the rules of the neighborhood," she said. "The trampoline. It violated the aesthetic." "Aesthetic?" Sarah stood up and stepped forward. "You're talking about aesthetics when you burned a child's trampoline? You're talking about aesthetics when you've turned this neighborhood into a prison?" "Sarah, you..." Karen stammered. "No, Mrs. Marie," Sarah said, her voice firm. "It's time for you to stop. It's time for us to take back control of this neighborhood." "I have something to say." Mrs. Martha, an elderly woman, shakily stood up. Marie once fined my family $500 just because my rose bush fence was 2 inches taller than allowed. He said it blocked the view. And me, Mr. John, a middle-aged man, continued. Marie forced me to repaint my house 3 times just because the paint color wasn't pleasing to her. And me too, a young woman said, her voice full of frustration. Marie banned my son from playing basketball on the sidewalk, saying it was dangerous for pedestrians. But the truth is, she just didn't like the noise. Accusations kept pouring out like a flood, sweeping away the silence. Karen sat there, her face pale, her eyes full of fear. She knew her power had crumbled. Enough, Mr. Bill, a respected man in the neighborhood, stood up. We can no longer live under this dictatorship. Marie has abused her power and bullied us for far too long. We must force her to resign. Applause erupted like thunder, and shouts of "Karen, resign" echoed throughout the room. All those in favor of forcing Marie to resign, raise your hand, Mr. Bill said. Everyone in the room raised their hand, except for Karen. The decision has been made, Mr. Bill said, his voice firm. Mrs. Marie, you are immediately removed from the position of HOA president. Karen stood up, trembling, glaring around the room with eyes full of hatred. You will regret this, she said, her voice shaking. You will pay the price. Then she turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the victorious cheers of the Green Court residents. After the tumultuous HOA meeting night, Green Court seemed to shed its burden. The tense, suffocating atmosphere that had hung over the neighborhood for so long slowly dissipated. I realized that when we stand up to protect justice, we not only protect ourselves, but also change an entire community. The fear and hesitation in the eyes of the neighbors slowly disappeared, replaced by confidence and strength. One afternoon, I took Lily out to the backyard. The new trampoline was set up, its bright blue color shining under the golden sunlight. Lily squealed with delight, jumping up and down endlessly, her laughter echoing throughout the neighborhood. Watching my daughter so happy, my heart swelled with joy. I knew I had done the right thing. I was no longer just a father, but a stronger man, ready to fight for the values of justice. Green Court had changed. The flower gardens were carefully tended, the hedges neatly trimmed. The children no longer feared playing outside, and the sound of their laughter filled the streets. The residents gathered for meetups, barbecues, and outdoor parties, coming together to build a united and peaceful community. My family had not only restored the trampoline, but had also helped bring about a transformation in the heart of this community. This story is not just about dealing with someone like Karen, but also a lesson in unity and protecting personal rights. When one person dares to stand up against injustice, they can create significant change in the community. Nothing is more valuable than justice and freedom. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos on the Crazy Neighbor Drama channel. Share your story, and let's spread the spirit of fighting for justice.